Hey guys, my name is Ryan and welcome to Overwatch Central and welcome to another Master Guide. Today we are covering one of the most popular heroes in Overwatch and one of the most popular tanks, d.va. Now d.va was a really strong hero back in the day, but she got some pretty significant nerfs, but I still think she has a lot of potential. So today I spoke to LowKeyNerd, who is a top 500 d.va player and also makes videos on his YouTube channel about how to play the hero. So I sat down with him, had a discussion about the hero, got some good advice, and this is how it went. d.va is a hero that was incredibly popular about 6 months ago, was a must pick a lot, got nerfed, was pretty much sort of removed from the meta completely. Come back a little bit, why should people play d.va first and foremost?
I think she has a lot of utility that people don't make use of, at least from the gameplay footage I've watched. Like Mickey, you know, the number one in most people's eyes. She has that maneuverability that no other hero has. She can also eat ultimates, which we all are acutely aware of due to the tilt that it brings. But the interesting part about d.va, at least for me, is that experience of being able to fly around and engage and communicate. You are almost like the centerpiece of the disruption. That's why I think folks should keep playing d.va. There's so much going on with that hero that some people I don't think really see.
So just for a bit of background of you, like what season highs have you had in the past? Like what is your highest that you've been, and just any previous experience really, whether you just solely play d.va or whether you play all sorts of stuff?
Yeah. So I've got a pretty interesting history with this game. I've been playing since beta, but I actually started playing with an Xbox controller because I'm a console guy. Just started playing on PC about a year and a half ago. So I started playing Overwatch with a controller. Season 1, I made it just under top 500 very early on, like a rank or two away. It was around the 70s. I got to like high 60s with the controller, and then I was like, well, you know, I probably should learn how to play mouse and keyboard. So I kind of played around in quick play. Season 2 didn't go too hard with that. Season 3 is when I really started focusing on playing this game to win. Picked up d.va along with half of the community because she was pretty overpowered as well. My season high, the highest I've gotten I think is 45-30, and that's on low key. That's actually on my main account this season.
So I guess with d.va it's really difficult to talk about in comparison to other heroes because when it comes to that off tank slot, there's a lot of competition there, really. You've got the likes of Zarya, even Winston with a Reinhardt, Roadhog, Orisa. When is a good situation to play d.va? Because she's becoming much more popular recently, and I think it's just working out when to play her. So in your eyes, when is a good opportunity to play d.va? What game modes, what sides, and what maps suit her the best?
Yeah, I mean, for me personally, I love any map that has ledges with her, because if you get good at thrusters, really easy to boot people off the edge. Most people aren't expecting it from you. I mean, Grandmaster, top 500, it still happens. You can still get multi-hero boops on like the bridges and so on and so forth throughout all the maps. Game modes in particular, I personally like payload because you can really get coordinated with your team and plan the dives. Like, you're sitting on payload, you're like, there's their Mercy backline, Winston, let's go, or Genji, let's jump, jump with me, let's do this.
Yeah, for sure. You did mention Mickey at the start of this as well. Like, really is the first player that comes to mind when people talk about d.va, and just there isn't many people that will solely play d.va, especially now after the nerfs from like New Year. So I just wanted to sort of get to grips with what you think of that as a whole and where she stands at the moment as well.
First, you asked about Mickey, and they were also going to talk about d.va's status this season and moving forward, how viable she is. So Mickey, in particular, great player, but there is really no face for d.va. Mickey is at least in my experience, a more retracted player. He's not like the DSP Stanky of Lucio's. He's great, but he's not as vocal in the community. And I've tried to be vocal. I brought 2 accounts to top 500 with d.va this season, just to get the kind of like she's not as bad as people think she is out there. So that's a good segue into how I think d.va stands in the current meta. So interesting enough, if you go to Overbuff, I don't know if you know what you probably do know what Overbuff is.
Yeah.
You go to the hero statistics, so did D.va go to competitive. If you go to the win rate, like bars, the statistics there on the rankings page, and you go from bronze to Grandmaster, you'll notice an interesting trend. D.va's win rate actually increases the higher you get in the brackets. It goes from 50 in bronze, I think, to 56 in Grandmaster. So that's a very strange trend. Usually heroes either remain steady or they'll slowly decrease. The reason I think, in my opinion, that D.va gets better is because what D.va does the best of any hero is she shuts down skill. I played against Silk, Thread, Space, Kefri, all these guys, and they're great hit scans and they're great at this game. But it doesn't matter how good of aim you have if a D.va's matrixing in your face. So in that respect, she will always be viable. With Reaper coming out, with his buff, with Hanzo getting a small buff, I think she's going to be even more viable in the upcoming season.
Definitely. You mentioned defense matrix usage there, and I think it's a thing that seems pretty obvious, sort of hold right click, much like Reinhardt, but certainly in my experience, it tends to be pretty easy to completely drain whatever usage you have of defense matrix and end up on the back foot. How should you be aiming to micromanage your usage of defense matrix? Is it something that over time you learn how much you have left, how much time that you have left, or are there some more solid tips that you could give when it comes to getting the most out of it? Because it's a really strong ability, and I feel often a lot of people might be overusing it and not getting the most out of it.
Oh no, that's a great question, man. And I've talked about this a bit, but matrix, one thing you don't want to do, and it's it only has a small use, is always like holding down the matrix. You don't want to hold it down when you're just in a normal team fight, doing normal things. Of course, when a soldier's ulting or a McCree's ulting, or you're expecting a Zarya to ult, you wanna hold the matrix on them. But in general team fights, a tip that I would give folks is to matrix the enemy team's Ana. You can almost always expect an Ana in any brackets nowadays, and by matrixing the Ana, you effectively take the healer out of the game, because Ana is all hit scan, or projectile, of course, but then you can eat her grenade, you can eat her sleep dart, you can eat her heals. So you effectively, by matrixing Ana, she's a dead hero, in essence. And I find that very effective in top 500 Grandmaster play. I can't speak too well to how it would be in Platinum or Diamond, but I would imagine the same thing would hold true here. And then of course, if you get right up in her face, you've been matrixing, she used all of her abilities, you can probably kill her after that.
It's a bit awkward to aim with D.va in a lot of situations, just because of the speed loss that you have, and you have to be fairly good at tracking. So I didn't know if you had any advice when it came to aiming with D.va's blasters, basically.
I personally think the circular reticle for D.va is better. You also shouldn't use
the bigger one or the smaller one.
The bigger one, and that's a good distinction. And the bigger one, for one sole reason, and that is it shows you the true size of D.va's spread. So even if you don't have great tracking, you can at least get to the hero easier, because your eyes basically use the outside of the reticle to adjust your aim. And if I know many pro players say you should always use a smaller reticle because then your aim gets more accurate, but with Overwatch, and that's the difference with Overwatch specifically, there's some heroes that don't require any aim, like Winston, right? You don't have to be the best hit scan player from Team Fortress or something to be able to play Overwatch. You need acute game awareness, and you need good communication skills. I like the aggressive D.va play. I think though that it is harder in the lower brackets, so you might want to work around that. Play with another player, play with a support main or somebody that you can dive with that speeds up the killing process and can help you get around that.
That's a good point, actually. With the buffs that D.va got end of last year, made her much more of an aggressive tank now. With you mentioning playing aggressively or defensively, how should you be approaching playing D.va? Like, what is her role within the team now? Because it used to be just diving whoever you wanted and killing them because you had freedom, yeah. But now, how should it be played, really?
Yeah, and that's the question I probably get the most. Is what do I do differently with D.va? First and foremost, and I'll probably say this throughout any game I ever play, is communicate with your teammates with d.va, because what d.va can do better than almost any other hero is consistently protect one or two heroes. So if you are playing with the Genji, and Genji's like, I'm ulting, you say, wait for me to get there so that I can matrix you as you ult.
Yeah, and just sort of hover with him.
Right, or any of that kind of stuff. You know, any hero that has that kind of engagement with the Tracers. You know, you see Tracer in the back line, or Tracer's like, I'm going to get a pick. We'll say, you know, wait a second, let me stack up with you, and we'll go together, and we'll secure that kill. That's super important to do. So your playstyle is now much more of a protector in that sense, at least for the initial engagement. But the caveat to this is when you have a stacked support team. So you have this, you know, pro Lucio and this pro Ana, and you know the Lucio knows how to play the hero now. So you can be that aggressive d.va if you have the supports to support you. I don't think her playstyle hasn't changed that dramatically, but I think it has, likely in the lower tier.
Yeah, so just probably playing a little bit safer and
play with your team. That's the biggest one. Just play with your team. She is a very much a team hero. She is not a ad hoc stronger Tracer anymore. You know, like that's effectively what she was in season 3. She is not that hero anymore. She's much more of a tank.
Let's talk about the ultimate. This is one thing that even I get sort of stuck on, where you throw it up right in the air, you don't get any kills with it. Like, what kind of advice, and you've done a video on this as well, but just sort of in short really, how should people be using their ultimates? Should they be using it to clear points when defensively almost? Say if a Genji's coming in with Nano Blade, you can throw it up in the air, try and clear the point of stuff. How could you use it aggressively? How could you sort of confirm those kills with it, I guess?
Yeah. Never throw your ultimate. That's the one thing that I played with d.vas and I kind of get frustrated. Just don't toss it for no reason. Like, say your team's just revived and you're walking to the point. Don't be the first, like, initiation. Don't be the person that starts the fight by throwing your ultimate. Use your ultimate while in the fight. Let your team engage. Jump in, drop the ultimate, because then everything gets disrupted. Your team doesn't have to worry about it, but their team has to disperse, right? They have to run to every corner, and that's going to let your team clean it up. Even if you don't get any kills, the fact that you've dissipated the enemy team, I mean, that there's no better ult in the game for doing that. It can clear whole points.
Is there any other sort of tips that you'd give for throwing it? Well, not just throwing it like so that's just throwing it in the air, you mean, or does that mean also like 3-point shots sort of thing?
Yeah, I'm definitely not a fan of the free throws, but number one, use it while your team's engaging. Of course, stack and again communicate with your teammates, because the communication and the stacking is great, especially if you have a Reinhardt on your team, because Reinhardt's, you know, shatter can knock down a bunch of people, but they're pretty spread out. d.va's ult can clean up all those kills. With the stall tactic in d.va's ult, which is controversial in and of itself, because basically if you ult when you're low health and you get right back into mech, your team's dead, you're probably just going to feed the enemy team another 600 HP pool of ult charge. So you fed them a 500 HP, and then you're going to ult, come back into mech, and then feed them another like 600 or so HP worth of ult charge. But if I see that my teammates have any chance of winning the fight, I will be the optimistic one. And especially on like a payload map, you want to fly around halfway up and then just drop it on top of the payload. Because what that does is, one, it makes everybody look up, and then it makes everybody scatter. So you're kind of getting like a double stall out of it. But always get right back into mech too if you think you're going to have a chance to win the fight. You don't want to leave your teammates hanging, and d.va, of course, is much better in mech than out.
You kind of mentioned the mistake of throwing the ult straight into the air as a free throw. Are there any other mistakes that come to mind when it comes to playing d.va that you see a lot of?
First mistake has got to be just trying to play her like she was played in Season 3. I don't think even that playstyle will work in the lower brackets. People are just going to focus you because you're going to be the first thing they see. You'll probably fly in, your whole team will be behind you, you'll matrix, you might be able to get out, but by the time you get out, your matrix is going to be gone. So you're effectively just a walking ult battery. for recharging their ults at that point. So don't ever do that. With Pilot D.va, remember that her hitbox is one of the smallest hitboxes in the game. You can outgun tracers and soldiers actually pretty easily if you have enough maneuverability. And I've done it plenty of times. I've outgunned some of the best tracers there are just because they can't hit you. It's not due to a lack of their skill. It's just she's so hard to hit. So don't give up when you're in Pilot D.va. Don't just like run in and do crazy stuff. Like actually, commit to the kill. Try to pick off one of their squishier heroes.
Definitely. We did speak about the other choice of off tanks with Roadhog, Zarya, stuff like that. When would you pick D.va or Roadhog? When would you pick Zarya or Roadhog over D.va? When is she just not a good pick? How would that end up sort of working, I suppose? Because it's stacked competition. Like, both of these heroes can easily hard carry if they need to with Roadhog and Zarya. When would you want to play D.va over that, really?
Maybe it's easier for me to answer the question of when wouldn't I pick D.va, because I'll choose D.va in most situations, but there are some instances where I will switch. If they have, and it might seem counterintuitive, but if they have an aggressive front line, but then also say a Widowmaker in the back, D.va's probably not the best pick, at least in the higher brackets, because what that means is that you'll have to fly behind their front line. So I'm talking if they have their own Roadhog, for example, to fly back to get the Widow, you'll likely get hooked. I had a game today where I literally had to switch because I could not break their aggressive front line to even make it to the back. That's when you might want to go Roadhog, so you can pick their front line and then break into the back.
The front line heavy.
Right. The worst hero to play against, though, as D.va has got to be a good Sombra. They absolutely make you a walking battery. It's crazy. It like kills the fun for me. But the hero stack that I wouldn't play with, because the Sombras are kind of rare. You don't play with or against great Sombras. But when they have both a Zarya and a Roadhog on their team, unless the rest of your team is suited for countering those two, it is truly hard to play D.va just because of the fact that they have the bubbles and they have the hooks, and you have to, protect your teammates from the hooks, but then you have to worry about Zarya bursting you down, so on and so forth.
Yeah, I imagine Zarya is a tricky one to fight against.
Right, it's tough.
Would you change to Zarya in that situation then? If, say, they've got really good Zarya that's burning you down, because you can't obviously do anything about the left click, same as May.
Yeah. I mean, if they just had a Zarya, I prefer the dive tank, so I'd probably go Winston. But if they had both Zarya and Roadhog, I would likely either also pick one of those two or go Reinhardt if we didn't have a Rein, that sort of thing. But also if they have a Roadhog and Zarya, they might have a pretty classic comp. Maybe you go Mercy Pharah. You can pretty much mess up those two tanks with Mercy Pharah. So
anything to really sort of go over when it comes to positioning at all? Any sort of standout things that you want to go over there?
Yeah, especially when it comes to that initial first enemy push. That's the one that's sticking in my mind right now. Like on Anubis, when you're on defense, this is pretty realistic example. And the team, they have 3 paths they can take on offense. They can go mid, they can go right, they can go left. So where should you position yourself as D.va? Well, I'm sure you've all seen that little like high rafter kind of near the bridge under the walkway. I usually perch there. I like to be able to see where all my teammates are. That way in case there's a hook, in case one of my teammates are engaging, I can fly down to help them. Because you know, and as well as everybody watching this will also know that communication doesn't always happen in Overwatch in all brackets. So you have to be the one to kind of see the playing field. You should be the eyes that are making up for the lack of communication.
Usually we finish off these guides with the sort of golden tip, I suppose. Like we ask what your best tip is. It doesn't necessarily have to be just about D.va, but what is your like golden tip when it comes to improving at Overwatch?
Oh man, for sure communication. I mean, I wouldn't have the win rate that I do if I didn't always just talk. Even when my teammates aren't talking, I'm still talking. Some people don't really like that, but it's better to communicate. Also, to stop yourself from getting tilted, because tilting, honestly, even if you don't think it affects you, it does. It affects me. It affects everybody. I'm sure if people out there watch Dota or League, you'll see when players are getting frustrated, their performance decreases heavily. So if someone's tilting you in a game, just remember that Overwatch does have those voice chat features where it lets you mute a individual player but then still remain in voice chat, or you could just mute that player's voice chat and then keep their text chat active so you can see when they're going to ult. It's those little things that I think make the difference. Stay positive as much as you can. I know people throw and they pick questionable picks. I still get upset about that kind of stuff. I got upset today because this guy had a 40% win rate with Orisa, and we had a Mei on our team, and he's like, well, why do we have to have this Mei on our team? And he goes Orisa, and then I, assume that he's throwing because, of course, we have a Mei on our team. But, just try to look past that. I have issues with that too. But those would be my two biggest tips. Communicate, and then also watch how much your own team's tilting you.
And finally, to just sort of end on, where can people find more from you, your videos, your Twitch, stuff like that? Where can people where to find you, basically?
Yeah. So YouTube, LowKeyNerd. I think you can just type it in and it comes up. Twitch is a little different. That's HighKeyNerd. That's my alternate account, and usually the one that I stream with, because it's a little lower, and I'm not good enough to manage my Twitch feed and then also play at that super high level. So that is a Grandmaster account, so they can come over there. And we also have a Twitter, so LowKeyNerd Overwatch.
And that's it for this time. Thank you very much for watching. We have very little heroes left to cover nowadays, so do let us know of the heroes that we haven't covered, which hero we should do next, and also check out all of the other master guides in the playlist below as well. But until next time, take care. We'll see you then.